Thermodynamics. Thermodynamics means flow of heat. Particularly in chemistry, thermodynamics deals with energy changes in the form of heat during a chemical reaction. So, the branch of science which explains the energy changes that takes place during the chemical reaction is known as thermochemistry, or sometimes it may be called as chemical energetics or thermodynamics. We know that in matter, energy is stored in several forms. We cannot determine the exact quantity of heat or energy that present internally in a given substance. But when substance converts from one form to another form, the difference in the internal energies can be calculated. That means, in a chemical reaction, a reactant, that means the species which is involved in the chemical reaction is said to be reactant, and the substance which is produced is said to be product. Now, reactant will have certain amount of internal energy, product will have certain amount of internal energy. It is impossible to determine the total amount of internal energy that was stored or present in reactant as well as in product. But when a reactant converted into a product, the difference in the internal energies may be determined. This is of two types, basing on the condition in which the change takes place. If we measure the change of internal energy at constant temperature, constant volume, then it is said to be change in internal energy. It can be denoted with delta U or delta E. If you determine the change in the internal energy at constant volume, the difference of internal energies, because reactants will have certain amount of internal energy, it can be denoted with UR or ER. And products will also have certain internal energy, UP or EP. These exact amounts of reactants and products' internal energies cannot be determined accurately. But when the change occurs, the difference of that internal energies can be determined. That change is denoted with delta U. By convention, delta U is nothing but internal energy of products final stage minus internal energy of reactants. That means or EP minus ER. Here generally in chemical reactions, the difference of energies will be liberated or absorbed in the form of heat only. Now, another way to measure the change of internal energies. That means sometimes the experiments, most of the time, because in our laboratory atmosphere, we'll conduct the experiments in open containers. When a reaction is done in the open container, that means exchange of mass and heat can take place. So that means the reaction energy changes is absorbed at constant pressure. So if you observe the energy changes at constant pressure, then the change is said to be enthalpy change. This enthalpy change is denoted with delta H. Delta H is Hp minus Hr, whereas Hp is enthalpy of products and Hr is enthalpy of the reactants. So, we can measure the energy changes or heat changes at constant volume or at constant pressure. If we measure the energy changes at constant volume, it is called as internal energy change or change in internal energy. It may be denoted with delta U or delta E. If energy changes, if we observe the energy changes, when the reaction is carried out at constant pressure. Constant pressure means the reaction which is carried out in open containers. The pressure is constant. In such cases, the energy changes is called as enthalpy change and it is denoted with delta H. So enthalpy change delta H is equal to Hp minus Hr. Enthalpy of products minus enthalpy of the reactants. That only we can measure. For example, if we take carbon when burned in presence of oxygen, it will gives us carbon dioxide and liberates 92.1 kilocalorie of energy per mole. Here, carbon has certain amount of internal energy. Here, oxygen will have certain amount of internal energy and carbon dioxide will also have certain amount of internal energies or enthalpies. It is not possible to measure the internal energies or enthalpies of a particular substance in an isolated state. It is not possible to calculate internal energy or enthalpy of carbon. It is not possible to measure internal energy of oxygen. It is not possible to measure internal energy of CO2. But when carbon combine to give carbon dioxide, heat is liberating. So we can measure that heat, the total quantity of heat that was liberated. That quantity of heat which was liberated at constant volume, we call it as change in internal energy. If we measure it constant pressure, we call it as change in enthalpy. Now this enthalpy change is denoted with delta H. This delta H is nothing but Hp minus Hr. That means it is the difference between enthalpy of carbon dioxide and the total enthalpy of carbon and oxygen. The difference amount, here it was liberated. Some heat is liberated means here CO2 enthalpy is 92.1 kilocalorie less than the total enthalpy of carbon and oxygen together. So when we apply Hp minus Hr, it means it is a lesser quantity than the sum of the reactants. That's why in exothermic reactions, such type of reactions in which heat is evolved are said to be exothermic reactions. In hexothermic reactions, delta H and delta P values are negative. That means it can be represented as 92.1 kilocalorie. if we express the heat along with the reactants and products, we'll add a plus sign. But if you want to know, express in the form of delta H, you will have use this negative sign for exothermic reactions. Because basing on the temperature changes or energy changes, reactions may be of two types, exothermic reactions and endothermic reactions. Endothermic reactions are those reactions in which heat is absorbed during the reaction. When heat is absorbed during the reaction, such reactions are said to be endothermic. That means in such cases, product's internal energy or product's enthalpy is greater than the enthalpy of reactants. So in such cases, enthalpy change or internal energy change is positive in nature. Whereas in the case of exothermic reactions, products will have lesser internal energy than the reactants. The difference amount is liberated in the form of heat. So heat that was liberated is nothing but the difference in the internal energy of products and reactants. So the study of these changes accompanied along with the chemical reaction is known as thermodynamics or thermochemistry or chemical energetics. During the study of these thermodynamics, we come across with several technical terms. First of all, let us discuss those technical terms before entering into the main topic, so that we will not have any confusion while learning the content or the concept. Now here in thermodynamics, we are observing the heat changes that takes place in a particular chemical reaction. So here, if we consider the reaction which is under observation as a system, the rest of the system other than which we are observing is said to be surroundings. That means here the whole thing around us, including us, is said to be a universe. Because energy is related, we know that energy is neither be created nor destroyed, but it can be converted from one form to another form. So heat is one form of energy. That means in a chemical reaction, just now we discussed that, since some chemical reactions heat is releasing and some chemical reactions heat is absorbing. So it doesn't mean that heat is generated in the reaction, in exothermic reaction, or heat is consumed in the endothermic reaction or destroyed in the endothermic reaction. It is not so. Somewhere in the one change is interrelated with the other change in this universe. So the small portion which we are observing or which is under observation is said to be a system. And the system, except the system which we are observing, all the remaining part in this universe is said to be surrounding. So system plus surrounding together gives us universe. Now this system and surrounding sometimes is separated by a wall. This separating wall, for example, if you are doing or conducting one experiment in a test tube, the test tube is a wall. If you are doing an experiment in a beaker, the beaker is a wall. So in between system and surrounding, there is a separating boundary. That boundary is said to be a wall. Basing on the nature of the wall, the systems are of three types. One is open system, Another one is closed system. Third one is isolated system. Open system, closed system, and isolated system. Open system, closed system, isolated system. Just to understand these three things, I'll give only one example, because you may not confuse with one another. Suppose you offered me a cup of coffee. If that cup of coffee is present in a cup without any lid on it, that is an example of open system. A hot coffee that is present in an open cup is said to be open system. Because here, from hot coffee, you will observe some vapors are evolving out into the surroundings. That means the system which we are observing, without any boundary, it is in contact with the surroundings. In such cases, along with heat, some mass is also exchanging from system to surrounding. Such type of system is said to be open system. Another system, if the same cup of coffee was kept in a bottle and it is covered with a screw lid, so that here in this case, you will not observe any type of such vapors that is evolved from the screwed coffee which was kept under a jar which is having a screw lid. But here, if you observe or touch, heat is liberating. That means in closed system, the mass exchange is not takes place, but heat exchanges can take place. Heat may come into the surroundings, or from surroundings, heat may enter into the system. That means heat exchanges takes place, but there is no mass exchange in closed system. And another one is isolated system. If same coffee, here it was in open cup, here it was in a bottle with a screw lid, and if you kept it in a thermos flask, you have an experience that if you keep hot coffee or hot things or cold things in a thermos flask, its temperature will be maintained nearly 24 hours, that it can retain that same temperature. So it means here exchange is not takes place from the system to surrounding or surrounding to system. Such system is said to be isolated system. That means it was insulated, because in thermos flask, if you observe the construction of a thermos flask, in thermos flask, inside the plastic bottle container, we have a glass inside, which is a two-layer gas. It will be like this. If you observe the thermos flask, inside the thermos flask, you will have a glass. That glass will have some knob here, which is sealed. So here, this is completely evacuated atmosphere. The air which is present in between those two layers is completely evacuated. It is full of vacuum. Since the hot coffee is surrounded by a vacuum atmosphere, because for the transfer of heat and media is required. Here in this case, if you kept the hot coffee in a bottle, the coffee is in touch with the bottle is in touch with the entire surroundings. That means there is a media for the transfer of heat. Whereas in the case of thermos flask, there is no such media, because this coffee is surrounded by a vacuum atmosphere, as there is a vacuum in between system and surroundings, the heat exchange is not possible. That's why the coffee that was kept in thermos flask cannot exchange heat energy from inside to outside or outside to inside. The substance temperature remains constant because of the lack of media to transfer the heat. So these are the systems, because we can observe the reaction in an open system, in a closed system, or in an isolated system. So the heat changes may differ when our observation is changed, because you will get different types or different quantities of heat changes that you can observe when the same experiment is conducted in the three systems. And those energies are interrelated. We'll discuss the relation later classes of this topic. So this is the types of system which we can observe during the thermodynamic study. During the study of thermodynamics, we come across to study certain properties. These properties can be divided into two types, namely intensive properties and extensive properties. Intensive properties means those properties which are independent of mass, independent of its mass or quantity, are said to be intensive properties. They are density, viscosity, specific heat, temperature, pressure. And certain properties, they depend upon the quantity of the substance. They are mass, volume, internal energy, enthalpy, entropy, heat capacity, refractive index. So these properties will depend upon mass of the substance. So to identify which property is extensive and which property is intensive, just take a box and write down the properties. For example, mass, temperature, pressure, density, viscosity, density, like that. If you divide it with a separating wall, what happens? Suppose the volume of the wall is 5 liters or 4 liters, say it is 4 liters, and 4 moles of substance is present. If you divide it, the volume will be half, the mass will be half. But if the temperature, in both the cases the temperature is same. Simply by separating a wall, the temperature is not going to be decreased. The mass is decreased, volume is decreased. Temperature and pressures remain constant. So those substances which depend upon mass will decrease, which are independent of mass remain constant. So extensive, intensive properties can be identified by writing all the properties. If you imagine that there is a separation, Which property is affected? For example, if you know viscosity, viscosity is the property of a substance. It will not depend upon the mass. If you take 1 gram, its viscosity is same. If you take 10 grams or 100 grams, the viscosity is not going to be changed. It is the chemical nature of the substance. It is independent of mass. But remember, though extensive property is there, the ratio of two extensive properties are intensive in nature. For example, mass and volume, both are extensive properties. But the ratio between the mass and volume is density. Density is an intensive property, independent of quantity or the mass. So, the ratio of two extensive properties will be treated as an intensive property. So, properties which are independent of mass are independent of quantity of the substance, only depend upon the nature of the substance. Such properties are said to be intensive properties. Those properties which are dependent on the quantity of the substance or the mass of the substance under the observation are said to be extensive properties. The study of thermodynamics is basically depend on 3 laws, namely first law of thermodynamics, second law of thermodynamics, and third law of thermodynamics. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy is neither be created nor destroyed during the chemical reaction, but it may convert from one form to another form. Energy is neither be created nor destroyed. Energy is neither be created nor destroyed. So, mathematically, it can be denoted that change in internal energy, U, delta U is equal Q plus W. Q plus W, where Q is the heat absorbed or released during the chemical reaction, whereas the W is work done by the system or done on the system. If heat is absorbed, then delta Q value is positive, denoted with positive sign. If heat is released, delta Q is denoted with negative sign. Similarly, if work is done by the system, it gives negative sign. If work is done on the system, it gives a positive sign. According to first law of thermodynamics, a part of the heat thus absorbed by the system is used to change in the internal energy. That means if heat is absorbed, so part of the heat absorbed will increases the internal energy and other part is utilized for doing some useful work. That means the heat that was absorbed cannot be completely done work, converted into work done or completely undergone to change of internal energy. Part of the heat absorbed will used for the increase of internal energy and the remaining part were used for doing certain useful work. This is first law of thermodynamics. Second law of thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics states that it is impossible to transfer heat from a colder body to hotter body on its own or without any external mechanism. And it also states that the heat that absorbed is not completely converted into a work without making any changes in the system or in the surroundings. The heat that was absorbed cannot be completely converted into work without any changes either in the system or in the surroundings. Another important thing that states by this second law is, for all spontaneous process are thermodynamically irreversible. All spontaneous process means the process which is carried out on its own is said to be spontaneous. Non-spontaneous means the process or the reaction which is not possible to take place is said to be non-spontaneous. So all spontaneous process are irreversible and it increases the entropy. The second law of thermodynamics also states that it is impossible to construct a perpetual mission of second kind. That means without energy, no work can be done. Without usage of energy, without using any energy, no work can be performed. With the help of this thermodynamics second law, we can predict that whether the reaction is possible in a particular direction in a given conditions or not. And it can also predict what fraction of heat is utilized during the changes of energy from one form to another form. That means when energy changes takes place from one form to another form, what portion of heat is consumed during the process. Third law of thermodynamics. Third law of thermodynamics states that at absolute zero temperatures, the entropy of a pure and crystalline substance is zero. Entropy means disorderness. Disorderness is, the entropy is the measure of disorderness of constituent particles of a substance. Because at absolute zero temperature, the pure and crystalline substance, the constituent particles are at fixed positions and their arrangement is in a proper order. That means the disorderness is less and almost zero at absolute zero temperature. At absolute zero temperature, the entropy of a crystalline and pure substance is almost zero. As temperature increases, the disorderness is increasing. That means orderness is decreasing. The constituent particles arrangement will change and disorderness increases as temperature increases. If temperature decreases, disorderness decreases and orderness increases. Hence, the entropy value will become zero. If we know the temperature dependence Cp value, with the help of that value, we can calculate the entropy of a substance at given temperatures. This is third law of thermodynamics. Now we are coming to an important law. In examination point of view, it is repeatedly given several times in the board examinations. That is Hess's law of heat of summation. Hess's law of heat of summation. According to this law, when a chemical reaction takes place in one step or in several steps, the initial and final products are same. The heat of the reaction will be same, irrespective of the path in which the reaction takes place. For example, let us consider a chemical reaction which is carried out in many ways. That means A gives D. This is a chemical reaction. A is the reactant and D is the product. Now here the heat of the reaction is Q. This is one way. In another way, first A converted into B, B converted into D. Here in the first step, in the conversion of A to B, the heat of the reaction is found to be Q1 and here the reaction is found to be Q2. In another path, A first converted into C, then C converted into B, then B converted into D. Here the reaction heat changes observed are Q3, Q4, Q5. Here in these three paths, A is the initial product compound and B is the final compound. This is initial reactant and final product. But the paths are different. In one way, A is directly converted into D. In another path, A first converted into B, then converted into C. Converted into D. In another time, A first converted into C, then C converted into B, and B converted into D. In each step, there is an energy change. Now, what Hassela states, whether the reaction is carried out in a single step, or in two steps, or in three steps, or in several steps, when initial and final compounds are same, the heat of the reaction is same. Mathematically, we can say that this Q is equal to Q1 plus Q2 in this path, and it is equal to Q3 plus Q4 plus Q5. This is another path. So whether it takes place in a single step, or in two steps, or in three steps, or in several steps, initial and final compounds are same. The heat changes are same. This is Hess law. This is Hess law. Now let us illustrate this with a live example where carbon and oxygen converted to give carbon dioxide. Now when carbon, which is a solid, reacts with oxygen, which is in a gaseous state, diatomic molecular gas, combined to give carbon dioxide, it liberates some heat, and that heat is 393.52 kilojoules. Now that reaction indicates that it is take part in a single step. The same reaction may take part in two steps. That is, first carbon reacts with half mole of oxygen to give carbon monoxide gas and liberates 110.5 kilojoules of energy. Again, in second step, this carbon monoxide gas reacts with another half mole of oxygen gas to give carbon dioxide gas. Now in this step, it liberates 283.02 kilojoules energy. Here it is takes part in single step, but here it take part in 2 steps. Suppose if we add these 2 reactions, what happens? If you add these 2 reactions, C plus CO, C solid plus CO gas plus half O2 plus half O2. O2 gas gives CO gas plus CO2 gas plus the sum of these 2 will be 393.52 kilojoules. Now CO is common both in reactant side and product side, so we can remove it. Now the remaining equation, if you write carbon solid plus oxygen gas will gives us CO2 gas plus 393.52 kilojoules. We got the same reaction, the same quantity of heat. So whether the reaction is carried out in a single step or in 2 steps, if initial and final compounds are same, the heat that liberated or absorbed is the same. That means the heat of the reaction is independent of the path in which the reaction takes place. It's only depend upon the initial and final state of the reactants and products respectively. Spontaneity or spontaneous process. Spontaneity means if any chemical reaction takes place on its own, or any process, not only chemical process, even a physical process or a work, it takes place on its own without any external aid, that is said to be spontaneity or spontaneous. For example, if I take a glass of water, if I tilt the glass without any additional force, the water will fall down. That means flowing of water from higher places to lower places, we need not give any energy or we need not give any mechanical support for the flow of water from higher regions to lower regions. It's a natural process. Similarly, passing of gas from higher pressure to lower pressures, there is no need of do any work. Similarly, heat transfers from hotter bodies to colder bodies. We need not do any support. Automatically the process will continue. Such processes which can take place on its own is said to be spontaneous. Non-spontaneous means that work will proceed but with the help of some external agency. For example, we can lift water from lower level to higher level. For that we require a motor or mechanical support to lift water from down to upwards, from colder body to heat transfer from colder body to hotter body. We need some external mechanism. Such are said to be non-spontaneous. So in chemical reactions, some reactions will proceed spontaneously and some reactions will not take place at all at a given conditions. So this will depend upon all thermodynamic parameters. That is, it's depend upon delta H value, it's depend upon temperature, it's depend upon entropy changes. All together, in combined state, they will explain whether the reaction is possible to take place or not. For that, a new parameter, Gibbs free energy, was introduced. Gibbs free energy. Gibbs free energy means the energy It is a thermodynamic term. The energy that is available to do some meaningful work is said to be Gibbs free energy. The total internal energy may not utilized to do some work. Only a part of that work, the part of that energy can do certain work.